Hey everyone, I'm back in the spot last week. I'm sorry. I'll probably have to repeat this, but welcome to the G Spot Live. Welcome to the G Spot Live on our Womanhood Wisdom Wednesdays. I've been doing this Womanhood Wisdom Wednesdays for years in one form or another. So I wanted to, and I have not missed 1 week. So this is the first time that I've missed a week in a few months since we started regularly in here. So I'm just doing some invitations. I heard some of you all were looking for me last week. So I'm just inviting. That's the pause. Not waiting on anyone to join. But you know, when we come in here, that's the option that we have. And I have to be inside now, given that the weather has changed a little bit. But who knows? I might still find my way back out there in the forest somewhere to broadcast if I can get a signal. So, how y'all doing? Especially how you doing with this Me Too movement? How are you feeling out there? How's it going? You know, October is the time when the veil begins to lift, the cosmic veil. And so October is a very sensitive time for sensitive beings. And even if you aren't sensitive, you may be feeling the intensity. And let me just tell you how things happen, whether you know about astrology or not, because that's not required for the cosmic happenings to happen. You see this Me Too movement that's happening, where people are talking about what it is that they've been experiencing, and from sexual harassment to outright testimonies of abuse, sexual abuse. And for some people, they've been talking about how triggered they are. Well, it's no accident that this is happening under a cosmic shift where Jupiter, where Scorpio moved into Jupiter. Okay. And Jupiter is the planet of growth and expansion. And so with Scorpio moving into Jupiter, it is a season where the way that we are going to grow and to expand is by moving into the deep dark. So that's what Scorpio energy does. It's a very intense energy. And so it moves into the dark places, the hidden secrets. So these hidden secrets are now starting to come out. And literally you can set your clock, set your antenna by some of the things that have been happening on the planet to some of the things that are happening in the cosmos. Like, you cannot make this stuff up. Literally, when you really get in tune, even if you have been Christianized to believe that astrology or the planets is not real, it's not something that you believe in, it doesn't need your belief for it to be real, because you all can feel that we're in a season where so much is happening. Ever since the eclipse, we've been in this intense, weird energy, from the hurricanes to and not just the hurricanes, the mudslides in Africa. I mean, like mass death in situations. It's not an accident. And so this Me Too movement now has people, women in particular, sharing. I've started to see some posts where men are looking at sharing as well their stories of sexual harassment and sexual abuse. So the conversations are opening. I've seen where men are saying how they just didn't know. They didn't know how many women were affected by this level of abuse and predatory energy. So the conversation is up. There's a lot coming up for people in their families, but this month we're focused in the monthly masterclass series on the power of the P, being passion, beginning with passion, and in relationship to our men. And I find that this topic has been very interesting, and the Me Too movement may be why sometimes as women we'll talk about wanting to either manifest a relationship with a man, or even manifest a better relationship with the sons that you may be raising as well. But when it comes to this topic, I've found that this month, the response has been low, I would say, in learning. And I wonder if that's because we think that we know everything about men. And I actually cannot say that and I'll start with my story. When I got married at 19 years old, I was a daddy's girl, even though my mother and father divorced when I was in second grade. And I was that their divorce broke my heart. And for the most part, I moved through the rest of my life for many years with a broken heart. Hey, everybody that's coming in. Hey, love. Hey, love. Hey, love. Hey, all of you beautiful women who are coming in. Good Girls Gone Goddess. And some of you esteemed alumna. Say hello. Just let me know you're there. Send me some energy. I see you all are coming in, and I cannot see everybody that's joining. So, my father, for the most part, became a weekend dad. And sometimes, he wouldn't even show up. And I'll never forget that incident where, I don't even remember if I knew that my father was dating someone. And I think my grandmother called on the telephone at home one day. I hadn't heard from my dad in a minute or whatever. And I would literally get to when my father wouldn't show up on the weekends that he was going to pick me up, because all I could think about in school was that day, that Friday, is getting home so that I, could just waiting for daddy's truck to pull up in the driveway. I mean, it took me years to not be able to even say that without tearing up. And so when I wouldn't come, I mean, I can remember being after school waiting on my dad. So imagine I had not heard from him for a couple of weeks. And then my grandmother called to say that my father had gotten married. And my mother kind of, no, I don't remember her response. I knew she wasn't happy, but she wasn't happy because he had gotten married. She wasn't happy because of the way it was delivered and because I wasn't invited. Now, mind you, I'm daddy's girl. I'm not at the wedding. I don't know anything about this situation. I had a complete breakdown. And when I used to have any type of situation, can you all hear me? Was the volume difficult at first? Because I was saying hello, everybody. Can you hear me? I turned the volume up. I want to make sure you can hear me. Can you hear me, good people? Someone who's watching, can you let me know if you can hear me? I'll know where to jump right back in. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Let me know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Ladies? Good. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. There's a bit of a delay. So that particular day, I used to have like an asthma attack. Literally, my chest would pretty much cave in on me from the experience of disappointment that I would feel when my father, didn't show up, or when my mother and father argued, or any of that. Thank you all for confirming. And that began to shape my relationship with myself, but particularly with trust, and particularly with men, in relationship to men. Not to mention, my mother and father are divorced now. And even though that type of situation didn't last forever, where my father would miss picking me up, as you get older, when you are a product of divorce, sometimes even if you do have your weekends with the other parent, when you get older, you start to do other things. So you may not go on your weekends with your father or with your parent. And so I remember when I did start dating, I started to date, and I had also seen, as a result of my mother and father being divorced, of course, my mother got into new relationships. Sometimes I would attach to the person that my mother was dating almost, and ironically, one guy she was dating had the same name as my father. And I was sure that, this would be my replacement daddy, if you will. In other words, I was craving my father, or somebody to be that father. So long story short, she moved into the relationship with someone who would eventually become her husband. No worries, no worries. No such thing as late. I'm happy for whoever shows up when you show up. I'm happy to be here. And I apologize for missing you all last week. I was in ceremony, came home, rested, had to go handle some bit. I didn't go into ceremony then, actually. I was preparing to go into ceremony, and I was getting some stuff and totally forgot about our time together. I never do that. So my apologies for last week. And then it was just onward forward to preparation, right? So we're talking about our men today, if you all didn't see, and our communication with our men and our mouth and such, and how that affects the power of the P. Because I'm sharing a little bit of my story as a young woman, and maybe you can travel down the path of sharing your story. Now, let me give you some context of me being a daddy's girl, my mother and father being divorced, my mother moving on to another relationship. My father, even in all of that strain, was still the apple of my eye. I loved the way my daddy smelled. And I even when he would come and ring the doorbell when he was on his way to work to bring his child support check, it was an event for me. It was a big deal for me. And I look like my father. The older I get, I think that I look a lot like, I can see my mother's face, but to her, and growing up, I looked like him. Okay. That I want mothers who are raising their children, I want you to listen from the point of your desires, even if you have a husband, but also listen from the point of view of your own childhood. Because now as an adult woman, I'm able to look at it from the point of view of my mother as well, because, when she would look at me, she saw my father, and it would strain the relationship, because sometimes she would say some horrible things in relationship to that. And so she gets into another relationship, and I did not see the best example in their relationship. Now, I'm sharing this context again so that you can see where we're going in terms of our communication. This is my individual experience. I want you to look at your individual experience. Oh, thank you, Nina, for that compliment. I am totally barefaced except for the lipstick. Just wanted to get in here to you all this afternoon. So when I now am watching, I'm having my experience with my father being not present. I've made some decisions about love and myself even being loved because of the way or the lack of communication there. Then I now see my mother in a relationship that I don't like what I'm seeing. I'm making some decisions along the way. One of those decisions was, I will never let a man treat me the way that man was treating my mother. And I was appalled. I was angry. And so I made decisions. And so listen to this in terms of the decisions that you may have made about love, about men, about yourself as a result of what you witnessed or experienced in your childhood, because it's your experience and it's your parents' experience. So now I'm dating. And let me tell you, even when I'm young, whether I was supposed to have a boyfriend or not, I had one. That's the bottom line, or two or three. And so when a guy would mess up, if you will, or if I thought he was doing anything at that time, cheating was a big deal because, mind you, even though I'm a young woman, my mother and father's relationship ended because of this whole thing around cheating. So now here I am in high school, and if I suspected anything, he was out of there, cut off, done, right? And so it became a running joke. My mom would be like, "Yeah, if he messed up, he was out of there." So I had this no nonsense policy, wouldn't take no shit off of a man. Remember, this is the decision that I made as a result of my pain and watching what I did not enjoy. So I could go on in terms of high school, but when I was a child, I spoke as a child. And then when you are all grown up, you put away childish things. So we think. So here I am, ready to be grown, and I'm now in religion because I'm in college, and I'm in college now, but I've always been called to ministry. I've always been called to high elevated spirituality. Whether it be when I was Catholic, I wanted to be a nun. Like literally, I always took my relationship with God to the next level. So I don't remember how or when, I don't know what it was at Southern where I felt this thing again, and I started studying and reading the Bible and bumped into Islam and all this. So now I'm studying with the Muslims, and I'm learning more about the Bible through studying with the Muslims than I had ever learned in school, and new concepts and identity of seeing myself in the Bible, because I had a whitewashed version of religion as a young girl. Whitewashed, European version. And so now here I am studying with the Muslims, and I see lineage, and I'm understanding my people in the Bible biblically through the Muslims. So I was really, really enamored with that journey. And I chose to become Muslim. And in the Nation of Islam in particular, a lot of people marry early. And for me, this was perfect to feed the starving little girl who wanted to be loved and wanted to feel safe. In other words, sometimes even the religion that we choose can feed our unmet needs. I want y'all to let that marinate. Sometimes we choose God and the religion of expressing God because of the unmet need. And so I never felt like my family, not just my dad in the situation with my family, but that they really loved me. Now, that's another story that goes deeper into generations, things that get passed on to generation. I don't believe that now, but I believe that as a little girl. So I felt totally abandoned and rejected in my own family. I believed that I was the black sheep. So here in this religion was all of this family and all of this structure, and it was perfect for my pathology, for real, to be honest with you. And so here I am, and there was a whole no fornication, no adultery type of teaching there. So same thing, not any different if you were Pentecostal or if anything, it's taught everywhere. Some religions are more loose about it than others. Jehovah's Witness often can relate to this story because there are institutions that put you out if you don't follow the rules. They punish you if you don't follow the rules. Whereas if you're Baptist, you get pregnant or you do whatever, you may get a whole bunch of elders talking to you, but you don't have a process around this type of thing. So the Nation of Islam is known for being strict that way, but so is Jehovah's Witnesses and some form of the Pentecostal faith as well. Or Church of God in Christ and that type of thing. I don't mean to name anyone's faith in term to be disparaging, but what I'm doing is just saying that a lot of times we think that where we are or what we learn is specialized, but we can connect to each other based on these commonalities for a reason, for our healing and to elevate and to be able to let go of concepts that no longer serve us. So I'm only naming these things because unless you have taken a journey outside of what your mother passed down to you or your father passed down to you, you may not know anything about how other systems work, believe, and why it can be so traumatic for certain people to fully heal, especially if you have a fear-based teaching or relationship with God. Does that make sense? Let me check in. Does that make sense, ladies? What I just said was a mouthful, and I want to make sure those of you who are listening, even if you're listening later on the recording, that what I'm just saying, it does make sense to you right now. Just let me know. So you can just let me know with a yes or it makes sense. Just send me a little something. Talk to me. Talk back to me. I'm waiting on you before I move on. Because our relationship with men is deeper than whether, I always say this, whether you're lesbian or not, our relationship with men is always deeper than just our surface interactions. Does that make sense? Okay, so I got one yes, it makes sense. I know that there's a delay on Facebook. So I know I'll be waiting for a minute okay, good. Thank you. Okay, great. Now, so I can continue. So I get married. In this tradition, I saw someone, I actually saw him declared. That's my husband. I knew it. It was like this divine connection at that time. I knew it. I declared it to myself before I even met him or knew his name. And sure enough, within probably 30 days, we were married. My family had a fit. But that's another part of the story in the religious context and everything. And so I still married at 19 years old. And I was in love and all of that at 19 years old. I'm a young bride. I don't know shit. I just know the religion. I know how to be in love as a 19-year-old knows how to be in love. My husband was 11 years older than me. Ex-husband at that time was 11 years older than me. So what do you think I was really looking for? Someone 11 years older than me. I was looking for security. I was looking for daddy and at that time didn't know that I was looking for daddy. Everything that daddy couldn't give me. And because of this unconscious program that was operating actively, I'm in a marriage now, and in this marriage, if you've ever been married or in a long-term relationship, you're going to bump into issues, whether it's communication or whatever. And I did not know I had the anger and the rage that I had inside of me. And of course, later on in my life, I understand that was all of the anger and all of the hurt and all of the rage that I had from my father. Everything that I could not express. Yes, you said, what are we looking for? You got it, Chandrika. Guidance, protection, and love. Yes, I wanted to find that. I wanted that in that man at that time. And nobody, even if somebody had told me that's what I wanted, I probably would have argued with them. I probably would have dismissed them, because 19-year-olds, if you're raising a teenager, you can't tell a 19-year-old anything. Most of the time they think they know everything. Even if deep on the inside, they may think that you're right. They don't want you to be right. So I was moving forward. And then I had the righteousness of religion backing up my choices I was making, because in my mind, I'm doing this in the name of God. Now, mind you, I was also not having sex with my first husband. I was following the rules. I want to talk into the ear of somebody who follows all the rules of God and religion. Because guess what? How many of you out there have followed all of the rules of God and religion, and then you still get into marriages and situations where you are like, God, wait a minute. Why did he cheat on me? Why am I having this happen to me? Why is that happening to me? Because I did right. I followed all of the rules. Okay, yeah. Come on now. Don't leave me out there. I followed all of the rules. Well, when I got into this marriage, I didn't know it was there. I didn't know what I was feeling was there. I didn't know how to deal with a man, an alpha male. I didn't know how to deal with a man being the leader of the household. I saw my mother talk to men like they were four-leggeds. And so I didn't have a healthy understanding of how to communicate with a man. I didn't understand how to ask for what it is that I really wanted. I except for, maybe some material things. In fact, let me tell you something. Let me give you something that my ex-husband had to teach me. One time, I'm still in college. We got married. The intention was for me to finish the semester in college. Well, I had a best friend who was a man at college, and I trusted him. I mean, we had a great friendship relationship. And so something was wrong with my car. I'm married. I needed some support. I needed to get the car somewhere or something. So I called my best friend. And my husband at the time called me, and I told him, well, I don't know how I told him. Never asked him for support. He said, you did what? He said, you called your best friend and you didn't call me? And I said, well, yeah. He said, oh, baby, let me explain how this works. He had to tell me and how I'm responsible for you. I am your husband. When something like this happens, you come to me first. I didn't know. Wasn't comfortable with asking for what I wanted. So that was the beginning of a man teaching me how to interact. If I could go back a little bit, because of the relationship with my father was a gruff guy during this divorce. He wouldn't die. When he died, peace and blessings be upon him, he wasn't that way, but he was gruff. He could be very, very gruff, very straightforward. And I'm a sensitive soul. At that time, I didn't know anything about being an empath, nor did my mother know that she had a child with these gifts. And so I shut down. I basically would not ask my father for anything because I was too afraid that I would end up in tears by his response. A lot of times he would say I didn't have it. So I didn't want the disappointment and the pain. My mother, if I asked her for something, a lot of times she would go off like, I'm the one carrying all of this. Come on now. If I'm talking to any single mothers in here that have done that, you can go on and say, ouch. Don't just get caught up in my story, or you can say amen. When you're carrying the bag. And so anyway, I'm the one, I always got to do it. Something like that would be that kind of thing. So now as a child, I don't have a healthy relationship for asking for what I want. So now when I'm married, it shows up. It's okay. It's cool when you're dating and you're in high school and that kind of thing. But now here I am in relationship with a real man. And I didn't have any skills. That's basically what I'm saying. And so I grew up around a lot of strong matriarchal women. Come on, out your amen. I grew up around a lot of strong and matriarchal women. And they ran the show for the most part. And a lot of them didn't have men. They didn't have, I didn't have a whole bunch of uncles to interact with. I did have some god brothers and that type of thing. But I didn't learn, I didn't have a brother. So therefore, once again, I don't know how to interact with men at that time in my life. And sisters, what I'm saying to you is, when it comes to us saying that we want to attract a man, a lot of times we don't really know how. We may be very attractive to men, and we can attract men into our lives, and then when we get them, we don't really know what to do with them. Not in the sense that you have to subjugate yourself or lose yourself, but a lot of times we're following broken models in our relationship with men after we have attracted them into our lives, because as soon as we begin to like, love, or really desire them, what happens is our triggers become active. Hey, sweetheart. Hey. When our triggers cannot become active if we don't feel anything. So let me talk to the women who don't feel anything. You may be the player. You may be the one who use men or make them do, make them serve you by, some people call it a gold digger. Some people call it just being a smart woman who knows how to ask, and you look for men to supply all of your needs. That may not be, so you may not be able to relate to my story. But you may be the woman who has used men in order for you, like your ATM, in order for you to feel safe. So just like I didn't know how to ask, there can be the flip side of women who use men to be their ATM machines, to be their security, but it shows up in another way. Even for women who have had their father in the house. Once again, I'm telling you my story of my father having to leave the house. But if you have even had your father in the house, was he emotionally available to you? Was your father emotionally available to you? Did he groom you in how to move in the world? You see, our relationship with our mother teaches us more about ourselves. Our relationship with our father teaches us how to be ourselves out into the world. And so you could have a father that never left, that raised you, but did he engage your feminine, or did he teach you how to show up as a man, or what? Because when it comes to our relationship with men, a lot of times, I'm gonna say this with all love and care, and I feel like y'all are in the room with me. So a lot of times when I'm in the room, I'll say like I'm gonna look away, so nobody will think I'm looking at them. So I'm gonna look just in case you're really close to the screen, like I am. I want you to even listen to this if you're a single mother and you're raising boys, because some of us are emasculating these boys because of our unhealed self, not knowing how to communicate with men in a healthy way. Okay? So in other words, I'm asking every woman that tunes in to listen from the seat that you are currently sitting in, but also listen from the seat of where you have had to sit at another time in your life. Okay? But the goal is to get you to the seat that you desire to sit in, the seat of the power of the P. Now, I'm because the power of the pussy, if you will, is loaded with purpose, with pleasure, with passion, with all these things. That is why I'm breaking it down into all of the P's that apply. Because what we have been taught to focus on is the power of the P in terms of being able to attract a man, pop it, drop it, roll it, do whatever we want to do with it. But then when it comes to using the connection with our feminine, there's a real disconnect. And some women women have decided that it doesn't even matter anymore, because as long as I have what I need, then I don't need to learn anything. And so we have a lot of women who are very well achieved, who are very well documented in terms of degrees and such. And I'm telling you, I sit in the room with just as much as I sit with women who are broken. I sit in the room with women who have the microphone, the spotlight, the titles, the team, and all of the things that go with it. And even they have the self-esteem. And many high achieving women have said the one area that they still are broken in is being able to be in relationship with men. Men who don't compete with them, men who they, who they don't have to take care of, or whatever the situation is. And now we have this Me Too movement. That's where I started. Some of you all will have to listen from the beginning, because we're in this season right now where a lot of things are being exposed and talked about openly in the collective. The collective, if you can look at what's happening, the collective is healing our relationship with men. You can't be in the season of the year of the woman, or in the age of the woman, because that's where we are. The divine feminine, the age of Aquarius, is all about the return of the mother energy. Well, you can't talk about women's power and not heal. You can't talk about women's being restored to their rightful seat of power and not be able to look at our relationship with men. Because if we really study who we are in the context of history, in the context of change, and I'm talking about age-old history, not just in the terms of the suffrage movement. I'm talking about beyond the suffrage movement, when women had superpowers and knew that they had it and used it and sat in the seat. You can't have a king's seat without a queen in these societies that I'm talking about. But somewhere we fell from grace. We fell from our ability, not just man, but woman as well. And so now here we are having to unlearn so many things that we have inherited from our families, but we have also unlearning so many things that we've held from these institutions that taught us how to be docile and passive or passive aggressive, and gave us doctrine and theology that would tell us that if we did it this way, it would guarantee this outcome. And many times these types of things have been taught in the name of God, that if I just do this, then I'm guaranteed that. And you have so many women who have done that and who are yet suffering, who are yet still quiet. And that's why this Me Too movement is triggering. But when we start talking about how we communicate with our men, there are at least 4 to 5 key principles and fundamentals that I'm going to teach in the strategy class that could help improve our communication. I learn on the job. Am I by myself? Am I the only one that had to learn on the job? This is why you should never say to yourself that you failed in a marriage. You should never walk with your head down because a relationship broke up. Because the truth of the matter is, many of the culture set us up. Our parents set us up because we weren't set up to win in relationships. We were set up to fail. And so many of us are learning on the job. So I would, instead of looking at yourself as a failure, look at yourself as a student. And that is why when we go into relationships, we should have already been in the classroom of self-discovery. We should already be in the classroom of knowing what our desires are and what our needs are before we get into the relationship. But hey, it doesn't always work out like that. Some of you got married because you were pregnant. Some of you got married because you needed some help. Some of you haven't been married at all because you're too afraid to let anybody in. Because if you look at this Me Too movement, then you will see that this Me Too movement, if it's that many women who have had predatory experiences at the hand of men and have kept it a secret, then where does that anger go? Where does that feeling of violation go? You cannot tell me that in the collective energy of women that there is not anger and rage at the men, because we have experienced being preyed on by men. So there is a healing, a call for healing when it comes to male-female relationships. Even if you are a mother raising your son, if you have broken relationships in the area of men, if men molested you and violated you, and now you have a son, have you healed that? What messages when you look at that male child? I'm telling you, we have 3 boys. We have 3 boys. There was a period where I'm almost ready to call her, we call each other co-parents. I'm telling you, y'all, the power of ritual, the power of knowing who you are in your feminine. I'm walking down the alley now of bonus parenting, step parents, co-parents. My husband and his ex legitimately parted. I legitimately came into their life, but she was not believing like that he moved on. I don't know what she expected. And so I met her. We had an arrangement. She had a court-ordered arrangement. And I guess she realized that the boys loved me too much. I mean, they really attached to me. And it must have triggered. She ripped the children out of their father's life. Because some people may say, well, how did he go to Costa Rica and he still has children? It nearly killed him. I can't say too much because that's his testimony. And a lot of times, you know, we latch on to this thing that society has now about single moms and a whole lot of absentee dads. But a lot of women are not taking responsibility for their anger when the man moves on and it does not work out for them. A lot of women don't want to hear it too much because they are truly walking in anger when it comes to this whole thing about co-parenting. And so I witnessed my husband's children be ripped out of his life. And long story short, during that period that it was nothing we could do. We tried everything. Family members tried everything. Everything. You hear what I'm telling you? Family members tried sending money, doing 3-way calls. She locked him out. She was even in violation of the court order. So we ritualed, prayed, ritual. I'm telling you all, when getting away from the feeling of fear around black magic and all this stuff, you gotta have some higher level tools when you are dealing with low level bullshit. Okay? So we returned from Costa Rica not knowing we were going to be here. My husband basically reached out. This time he got through. But when we got back on a regular schedule, and I'm telling you, we're so far away from where we were. Like now she introduces me. This is the children's other mom. This is the children's, or she'll say stepmom, or she'll say other mom, whatever. So far, we collaborate now. We talk on the telephone now. So there definitely is the happy ending to this story. And that's how I started doing these lives, is the day that I had a coming to Jesus meeting with her, because I needed to show up. And some of you who are spiritual, you use that as reasons to be passive when you have a voice and you can be the light in situations of darkness in your family. Okay? But my point was, we have 3 boys, and we could see the regression from them energetically being ripped out of proximity to their father. Not because of this thing that we have that men, yes, boys need men in their life, but even that we take a little too far, because if we know who we are anciently, we know that there's a period of time where boys are supposed to be with their mother, and then they are turned over through a rites of passage process with men. So we take that sometimes a little too far as well, but men do learn best from other men. The regression that we saw was, we're still working to recalibrate them and to give them that grounding. And all of us now are working together. But sisters, when it comes to our mouth, so many of us don't know how to communicate with our men because we stop communicating with ourselves, or the voices of what was are louder than what it is that you need to really express. So many of us have the volume turned up on unmet needs, when underneath there's something else that you really are crying out for. Some of us have settled long before the relationship that you're currently in. We started settling, and we don't know, we fear loss. So sometimes you'll hold on to bits and pieces of the relationship because you don't really want to let it go because of theology, philosophy, or whatever, when the truth of the matter is it may already be dead anyway. But what is the truth of the matter? What is it that you are really craving? Again, there are 5 principles of communication that feed passion in the power of the P, passion, for in our male-female relationships, that I'll be sharing in the strategy session tomorrow. I put the link up above so that if you want to join, so that we can look at some of the basics of the communication. I even have something that a dynamic interaction that I want you to look at and tell me what you see when you come in to the strategy session. It blew me away, and I thought how powerful it will be for those who join the strategy session, because we're in a season where these secret things, they are going to show up. They are stirring. So they're not even deep down. They come from deep down, but now they are stirring in the collective. And this is why a lot of times when it comes to our male-female relationships, you cannot always solve the issue or the problem where the problem is. So many of us who have men in our lives, we keep on trying to solve the problem in our communication, in our relating with the man or with the lover or with the partner. But sometimes we need to step into an objective space to look at how we could be attracting and creating. Because the thing is, when it comes to love relationships, we are always attracting to us the lesson that we need to learn. I cannot underscore that enough. Even if it is in the meantime relationship, all relationships aren't meant for them to be lifetime relationships. Some of them are seasonal, and they come to teach you what you need to learn. You always attract to you. Do you think it's an accident that a woman who has experienced rejection and abandonment will attract a partner that may leave, or they have the issue and the fear that he may leave? We always attract the unhealed lesson. Do you think that it's an accident that when men they womanize, oftentimes they're trying to crawl back up into the womb of the mother through other women? They're looking for something. And a lot of times as women, we want to be that something. We want to save them. We want to protect them. We want to do that. But what we really want is somebody to do it for us. So we'll do it for somebody else and say, well, don't you see I'm protecting? I'm here for you. I'm riding with you. I'm your ride or die. How could you do that to me? I'm your ride or die. What do you mean? And many women are oftentimes showing up as men. And so also when we get into relationship with the alpha male that we absolutely can respect, do you really think that he is going to be able to handle you coming at him in a certain kind of way lest he begins to see you as a man? This is why he won't have sex with you. Or when he has sex with you, he has it in a certain kind of way. This is why he stops coming home. Now, see, I'm not blaming the victim, but a lot of times we scratch our head as though we are only victims. But the truth of the matter is we participate. We participate unconsciously. We participate consciously. We participate even subconsciously, especially subconsciously. The subconscious mind is the one that's always creating and attracting. But where I'd like to go with you in the strategy session is a higher consciousness, the super consciousness, because it's in the super consciousness that we are going to attract the type of interaction that we desire. And if you are in a strained relationship, sometimes the strain is not nearly what you think it is about. And I'm going to close with this. My master teacher, who was a man, I have a team of master teachers who prepared me to be able to be a master teacher. Give thanks. Peace and blessings upon Ron Davis, who I love and adore. And I thank you for the truths that he told me and taught me in relating to men. God, I thank God for that man in my life. Oh my God. And he was hardcore. He straight, no damn chaser. Okay. And he said, he would tell me so many gems, and I was going to give you one of them. But this is the one he used to always say to some of us strong women. He said, all relationships can work. All of them can. The question is, are the two humans that entered into agreement willing to put in the work that is required when your shit comes up? Now that's male relationship, female for female, or male female relationships. Relationships are your mirrors. And if you look in the mirror and you do not like what you see, oftentimes it's a reflection of something that's in you. Because if you can spot it, you've got it. If you attracted it, it's a vibrational thing that could not have come. This is when the scripture says, let it not come nigh my dwelling. When you are vibrating at a certain vibratory rate, some things can't even get next to you. That's why when it does, that is when it's time for you to take the Selah moment and pause and say, how did this come to me? Instead of going into, he did this to me, he did that to me, because you can stay there, you can die with that. You can die with that kind of anger. And y'all know if it's true, if we look at some of the matriarchs in our families, the Madea type of version, the sacrificial lamb of the soul food type of mother who carries the house, who carries the household. Many of our mothers have died with the pain on the inside. And my question to you is, are you going to be one of them? Are you going to be one of them? Or are you going to make the decision to be teachable, coachable, trainable? And let me tell y'all something before I say my final point. Yes, we do learn from other men. But there are women like me who can teach you and share with you how to be in relationship with men. But we are so desperate for our daddy and for somebody to teach us on how to keep the men that we got. We run to the Steve Harveys and we run to that other coach, boy, I can't remember his name, real popular. But he has a clientele of women. And we run Terrence this one and coach that one. And they put out something and we share it like it's crazy because a man said it. And we think that that's it. But do you know a lot of these men who are teaching, if they're not coming forth transparently with their pain, just like the women who come, like I shared my story, I shared my lessons, I shared where I messed up, I shared what I'm still learning, I'm shared the magic that has been working, honey. If a man that has the microphone is not coming from that place and he's just guiding you and shoulding you, he's no different than anybody else that has shoulded on women and womanhood and what a woman should be. I look at that and I watch how many of us running, and Steve Harvey with his 90-day rule and all of that, the foolishness. I don't know about Les Brown. I don't hear him talking that much about, but I'm talking about men who build their corporations off of broken women who are desperate for a man to tell them what to do in order, and we're so desperate for please teach me, because my daddy didn't teach me and my brother didn't teach me. Oh yes, Lord, Tyrese, that's the one. Oh my God, Tyrese. And he has more periods than we do. And yes, I said that on camera because that brother is hurting. He is hurting. He needs so much attention, but it's not our job to necessarily go save him. He has to want to. He has to be able to come and say, listen, the first rule of coaching or healing is becoming aware and saying, it's even in an addiction. When you go to a 12-step program, the first part of the 12-step program is to come to say, I am an addict. You must acknowledge where you are. So if you're coming off of your soapbox and telling women they should do this and they should do that, that's a breakdown for me of integrity. Because, Steve, you took your son from his mother. You used your power to disempower the woman who stood by you while you built your career. I mean, come on. But anyway, we're not going to make this about them. Because I'm a strong alpha woman and I communicate with truth, I have had to learn around my mouth. I've had to learn to know when to hold it and when to fold. I've had to learn how to get down to communicate from my core what it is that I really desire. I've had to learn how to adjust, even placing my desires onto my husband to be to me what I needed to be to myself. And making my husband responsible for the things that I didn't want to be responsible for. So I'm going to even tell you, all you reluctant leaders, the places where you are afraid to show up in your life, the places where your self-esteem has been affected, those places in your own life, and you use having a husband or having the man to be your sustenance, you are out of order. And it shows up in your bedroom, it shows up in our bank accounts, and it shows up in the legacies that we're creating that nobody knows about. Because when we go out, we put on our red bottoms, our fur coat. I don't know, at least some of the people I roll with roll out like that. We have the best hairstyle, we can show up, but nobody knows the terror that is going on in our households. Nobody knows how emasculated the man that is laying next to you feels because he's trying to figure out how to please you. Men want to please you, baby, but we don't believe that because we've inherited the pain of many, many women and sometimes some dysfunctional men in leadership who teach us based off of God theology. So, join us tomorrow. Those of you who are already subscribed, I look forward to teaching the monthly masterclass tomorrow at 9 p.m. I will make the $29 available. Hey sis, how are you? I will make the $29 available to those of you who get in today, if you want to take, I'm telling you, it's going to be an awesome session tomorrow. I'm going to do my best to keep it at 90 minutes, and we'll see where we go with this. So we're elevating the power of the P to bring the passion back in our bedrooms, our bank accounts, and our business, because our relationship with our men shows up everywhere. We cannot be in this world and not operate in our men. Now, last week I talked about the masculine, and there's a difference between men and the masculine, and sometimes we interconnect them. And the truth is, when we don't have a healthy relationship with our own masculine, it shows up as well in how we are able to drive and to move ourselves out in the world. So, I'm going to touch on that tomorrow as well. I love you. There's nothing you can do about it. It's been an awesome honor to have this fireside chat supplemental G-Spot live with you ladies. See you on the other side. Ciao. The link is above.